Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Sorry if I sound a bit frail and sick. I think I caught a cold. I'm currently running on 2 cups of coffee and I've been reading, and I recently finished a novel about a week ago that I cannot get out of my brain. This book had me in a state that I have not been in for a while. And this book would be Tess of D'Urbervilles. I think that's how you say it. I'm not sure. If you don't know what this book is, it is considered a classic novel, probably just because it's British. It was written in the late 1800s by Thomas Hardy, and it's about a young girl in rural farmland England, and her name's Tess, obviously, and her family finds out that their last name is related to a royal bloodline called the D'Urbervilles, because originally they were the Derbyfields, but then her family finds out that they're part of the D'Urbervilles, and so they want Tess, the oldest out of, I don't even know how many children they have. It's like 7, I think. The oldest out of the children, they want Tess to marry into the D'Urbervilles so that they can claim their inheritance. And she meets a man named Alec d'Urberville. And he's bad news. He's always been bad news. And then he becomes even more bad news after he drugs her and then essays her. After that, she's left to deal with the consequences of that. Basically, eventually the whole town knows, everyone knows, and she's basically an outcast from her entire village. So then she decides to go to another farm and work and try and live an honest life. And then she meets another man named Angel Clare, and she loves him very much, but she's torn whether or not to tell him about her past and the things that happened in her past, or to not say anything and try and live an honest life with him. After, it's just kind of, the whole book is just kind of a whole downward spiral for her. It's very tragic, very sad. I'm a sucker for sad, tragic books, and I'm also on my British literature grind as of recently, so this is kind of a perfect book to start reading. And I originally got interested in reading it because first of all, I had it on my list for a really long time. Probably back in 2018, I put it on my Goodreads list. But then I was reading 50 Shades of Grey a while ago. This book was mentioned in 50 Shades of Grey because it was like a gift that he gave her as like a courting thing or whatever. But it just reminded me to read it, so I did. And I found this really cute copy at the library. It almost makes me want to steal it a little bit, but I'm gonna prevent myself from doing that. And there is a lot of lore with this book as well. You have to get through like 50 pages of introduction, author's notes, essays and stuff to really like understand what you're getting into. And I got spoiled for it, but I thought it was important to read just so I wasn't confused. And then there's also like a huge appendix at the end as well, just for all the little words and like allusions they refer to. So there's a lot going on with Tess of D'Urbervilles for such a somewhat simple story. Overall, I very much enjoyed this book. I think it has to be one of my favorite books of the year, just because I thought it was very interesting. So originally I thought I was getting into something like Pride and Prejudice or a Jane Austen book, something pure, like that. I was not expecting all of this, like the scandal and the drama, and I think it was really brave of this author to create a story like that for that time, and to also write in the perspective of a woman and tell a woman's story at that time as well. I have some opinions on that, but we'll get into that later. The writing was very, very good. I thought at times it was poetic and ethereal. It kind of takes you to an otherworldly place, especially when he's describing scenery and romance, the romance between Tess and Angel. It was different, and I very much enjoyed it. I also think a book is good if it can cause a reaction out of me, and it did many, many times. I had to get up and pace the room and take a deep breath because I was like so angry at the injustices of Tess, poor Tess. But even through all the anger and sadness, I would consider it good because it did something to me. Now, I want to get a little bit specific on Tess, her character, because she does face all of these terrible circumstances. She is just like being put against the world. But she does have a very strong personality. She's written as a very like fiery girl, and she does fight back. Like she does. Ow. Sorry. If you guys hear running around, it's just my cat. She does have she has spirit and to get through all these trials. This is where I feel a little bit mad about her character, because I genuinely feel that the author was looking at the two choices, the two paths of Tess, and he was like, she could either be a strong-willed heroine who gets her happy ending, or she could go down this downward spiral tragic path. And he chose that for some reason. Now there's a theory, I read it at the beginning of the book, the introduction. Somebody was talking about Tess being a metaphor for nature. Because sometimes Tess isn't always described as like a human, she's more like a deity or a goddess or something. They often mention that. And a lot of the characters put Tess up on like a pedestal for her goodness. And besides like her family is like really mean. But everyone seems to like romanticize and idealize Tess for her honesty and her innocence. And it's like, I have a hard time accepting that. I can see how she can be a metaphor for nature, let's say. But I will say, if you're writing about a woman and making it a woman's story, like, I'm just gonna see it as a human story. If I were to think of her as nature, then I would be like the people in the book that were romanticizing her in that way, if that makes sense. I don't really want to be that kind of, I don't want to have that perception of the character, because I think of her as just, honestly, just human. And the romanticization and idealization of her is what got her into trouble, or made trouble for her in the first place. And I think this kind of goes into, like, the message of the whole book, like, the main theme, because when we're meeting Angel, her lover, he's very much like a societal kind of guy, even though he doesn't really act like it. But he very much values, like, society and, like, was raised that way, and then he wants to get into farm life, right? And Tess also finds salvation in marriage and, like, societal opinions of her. If it wasn't for, first of all, if we go all the way back to the beginning of the book, if it wasn't for her family's want of her to get married to a royal bloodline and claim their riches again, she would just be like an honest girl, but instead she's pushed into the pressure of what her family wants, of what society thinks best for a young girl. She just gets mixed up in all this tragedy. So I guess in that way, if we're gonna say this, I guess in that way she would be compared to nature. But just like as a whole, as a character, I don't think she is like Mother Nature, which is what they were theorizing. Sorry, I had to stop for a minute to chill my cats out for a second. But final thoughts. Overall, it was a really good book. I think that everyone should read this and form their own thoughts about it. And if you have read this book, please let me know your thoughts and feelings about it. I think this would be such a good like book club book to discuss, because I think it can be taken a lot of different ways and everything. So yeah, it's very thought-provoking, and I would definitely reread it again, just kind of revisit it and everything. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I always like doing book rants, book reviews, stuff like that, so it's bringing me back to my roots once again. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.